continue with bending now. So now we will be talking about beams, right? Now in that beams, we will be talking in more detail about bendings. Now I will try to be more concrete with respect to my notes, because now things are going to get little bit tough from here. Okay, now see, first of all, remember few things before I start with the concept of beams. First of all, you need to know some basic fundamentals. Okay, although we have spoken a lot about beams, but few fundamentals you should know about beams. Like, what is the first fundamental? What exactly is beam? Okay, purpose of beams and applications of beams. Now, once you understand these two things, then things will be clear in all of your minds that why do we analyze, why do we do the force analysis in designing the beam for structures, right? See, in any type of structural and mechanical design, or we can say in any type of structural and mechanical elements which we normally use in our practical purposes, see, beams and shafts play a very, very important role. Beams, and let me write it down as shafts, right? Beams and shafts, they are going to play a very, very important role. Now, see, I have said the word role, which means the purpose of it. So what is the main purpose of beams? In structural and mechanical engineering applications, what is the main purpose of beam? Any idea? What is the main purpose of beams?
So to provide structural support against tension and compression.
To provide structural support, or we can say to provide support or support against externally applying load. Can I say in more general words? Right? To provide support against externally applied force. Right? Now, this applied force can be of any type. It can be uniaxial, it can be multi-axial, or it could be tension, it could be compression, it could be shear. So those type of long and slender structures which are used to support different type of loadings, or we can say these are the structures which are used, these are the reinforced structures which are used to support the externally applied loads, right? And these type of structures we call it as beam. Now there are two most important traits of beam, please remember that. Let us say I draw a three-dimensional cross section. Okay, let me draw a three-dimensional cross section like this. Let us say I draw a beam having this type of structure. Oh, helicopter is starting. Let us say this is my beam, okay? This is my beam. This is my beam, and somewhere it support load like this. Let us say this is having cross section. Now, see, somebody will ask you a question. If I show you some certain structure, And if I ask you, is this a beam, column or a strut? So how you will answer? So in order to see whether it is a beam or not, you have to remember three most important traits of a beam. Three important features, I would say. Three most important features of a beam. Right? First of all, area of cross section. Sorry, yeah, let me use this pen here. First of all, structures which are, see, if you just take this beam, so its longitudinal axis will be somewhat passing through the centroid like this. It will be somewhat passing like this, right? So this is a longitudinal axis of a beam, and this total length, we call it as the span of a beam, or in more simple words, we refer this to as the length of the beam, L. And this is the width of the beam, B or W, and this we call it as thickness. So what is the area of cross section of this beam? Cross section is rectangular, so it will be W into T, right? Now, see, first of all, if any type of structure is shown to you, you please try to look out first thing. What are the type of loads that it is acting on that particular structure? So a beam, please remember this point. A beam normally supports a beam is used to support the loads. I think this will be clear to you. Acting perpendicular to its longitudinal axis. Okay, acting perpendicular to its longitudinal axis. Okay, to its longitudinal axis. Let us say this is a longitudinal axis. I am applying a load like this. Let us say it is subjected to concentrated loads at the moment. I have applied my loads like this. So these type of structure which is used to support the loads which is acting perpendicular to the longitudinal axis of a structure, these type of structures we call it as beam. Now, second most important trait of a beam, constant area of cross section. Okay, it will have constant area of cross section throughout its length. So can we say this is a prismatic body? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, good. So this is a prismatic body, right? Now, the third most important trait in order to identify the structure is a beam or not. Please remember, beam is never vertical. Beam, it is never vertical. If there is any vertical structure you see, normally vertical structures will be subjected to these type of loads, not these type of loads. Okay, if you see these type, so beam will always be horizontal, right? So it is never vertical. Now the third most, if it is a vertical, it would consider to be a column or strut. Now see, what is the third most important feature of a beam? L is very large compared to width and thickness of the beam. Please remember this. This is very important property of a beam. Okay. This is a very important property of a beam. So these are the three features that you should try to use whether the structure can be categorized as a beam or not. Okay. Now see. Got the definition of beam now? Any problem in the definition of beam? You have got any queries?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, now see, Under the action of these type of perpendicularly acting loads, there will always be bending in a beam. Okay, there will always be bending in a beam, which means under the action of perpendicularly applied loads, beam actually bends. Okay, so this is the most important feature. Now, due to this bending, a beam will be subjected to two type of stresses. One, we call it as bending stresses. We call it as bending stresses, and other we call it as shear forces, or we can say shear stresses. Okay, now see, beam bends. Now due to this bending, there will be some sort of displacement. Like you say, if this is your beam, you apply or load like this, so the beam will actually bend like this, right? Beam will actually bend like this. So this is nothing but some deflection in the beam due to this bending. So that deflection we also try to find out how much a beam would deflect under the action of externally applied force. Okay, so deflection, knowing deflection of a beam is also very important feature while designing beam for a particular type of structure. Okay, so deflection of a beam is also very important. So while you design any beam member, you need to take into account these three type of things. One is there will be a bending in the beam. So due to that bending, there will be two type of stresses that will be acting throughout any cross section if you take throughout the length of the beam. One, that will be the bending stresses. Other one will be the shear stresses. Although bending stresses, later on we will see that we denote this by B, it is more prevalent as compared to shear forces in case of beams, which means that shear forces we actually call it as V, and deflection of beam we represent it by delta. Now there are so many methods in order to find out the deflections of beams, that we will cover in unit number 3 under the subject deflection of beams. There are so many methods, right? So this is a basic introduction about beams. Second, we have talked about shafts, right? So beam is subjected to these type of loads. Shafts, these are subjected to torsion, twisting moment, I would say, torsion. So in that designing, the main designing criteria, when we will study about shafts and spring, we will see that the main designing criteria to design shaft is shear stresses. If you remember one thing, that in that internal structure of a body, we represent this resultant by Fr, and due to this there will be a resultant moment also m naught. So this Fr was categorized into two components, one normal to the surface which we call it as Fn, or we can say normal force, and one is parallel or tangential to the surface, we call it as Fs, shear force. Similarly, this m naught can also have two components. One component is in the direction normal to the force, and this force we call it as mt, which we call it as twisting moment, which is responsible for creating the twisting moment of one section of a body with respect to other section. So now if there is a equal and opposite twisting, so between the layers there will be friction, and due to that frictional forces it will be subjected to shear forces and shear stresses. So that is the reason under rotating structures are oftenly subjected to twisting moment, and in order to design such type of shafts are mainly used to transmit power. Shafts are mainly used to transmit power. Similarly, we have got another which is responsible for bending. So that is what we are studying here. Okay, so let us continue. Solid mechanics. Now let us talk about the classification of beams. Very briefly we will talk about the, guys just give me a moment please. हेलो, हाँ जी, कहाँ से? Okay, so we'll just try to see the type of a beam and type of a load. See, we should know the type of a loads that normally act on a beam and what are the different type of beams that we can come across. Okay, so let us say classification of a beam. How many type of beams you know, guys? How many types of beams are there? Any idea? What are the different type of beams you know?
Cantilever beam, sir.
Okay. Any other beam?
Fixed beam.
Fixed beam is actually cantilever. Second is simply supported beam. Yeah. Simply supported beam. Okay. Any other beam you guys know?
Continuous beam.
Okay, continuous beam. Other beam, that is overhanging beam. Have you heard about overhanging beam?
No, sir.
And
No, sir.
one is your rigidly fixed beam. Okay, we already know our cantilever beam somewhat looks like this. We have a fixed portion. If we just draw the front view, it will somewhat look like this. So it will have some cross section like this. Okay, our cantilever beam look like this, and it can be subjected to, see, a beam can be subjected to three type of forces. If I write it here, forces acting on a beam. A beam is normally subjected to three type of forces. First one, concentrated forces. Second one is uniformly distributed load, which is uniformly distributed or assumed to act throughout the length of the beam with a equal magnitude across the whole length. So that is what we call it as uniformly distributed load. These are the three loadings for which a beam is usually analyzed or designed. And the third one is uniformly varying load, whose magnitude varies across the length of the beam in equal proportion. Okay, so let us say uniformly varying load. So concentrated force somewhat looks like this. Let us say this is our cantilever beam. A concentrated force somewhat, let us say it is acting at a single point over the beam, and let us name this as F. So this type of force which act only one point at the length of a beam, somewhere at the length of a beam, we call that force as concentrated forces. right? Or it could be due, it could act in this way also. We have a beam like this and it is acting like this, say F. Okay, we have got this type of beam also. Now, second type of force to which a beam is subjected to is uniformly distributed load, which is divided throughout the whole length of a beam in equal magnitude. Okay, so let us say L, and from this say 0 to L, let us name this as X. X is equal to 0, and here we have got X is equal to L. Okay, so we are going from left to right. So it is distributed somewhat like this. So at every point across the length of a beam, its magnitude will be equal. Its magnitude will be equal. Okay, or we can say W per unit length. This type of load we call it as UDL. Okay, so normally this UDL, if this UDL to solve the beam analysis problem, it is converted to a equivalent concentrated load, equivalent or resultant concentrated load. Okay, to simplify the problem. So equivalent concentrated load it is converted to. The question is, how do we convert this? We say the total load that will be acting is it will be at a certain point. It will be W into L, and it will be assumed to act through the centroid of this beam, which means from this point or from this point it will be acting at a distance of L by 2. So it somewhat looks like this. This, and this. So the magnitude of this force is W into L. Okay. So this will be acting at a distance, let us say this is point A, this is point B. From this point, we have got a distance of L by 2. So that is how we convert to do the force analysis of a beam which is subjected to uniformly distributed like this. We convert this into the equivalent concentrated load to find out the stresses that will be acting on the cross section of a beam across the entire length. Now, the second type of load, the third type of load that a beam can be subjected to is uniformly varying load. Now, as the name indicates, this is a load whose magnitude varies from one point to other point across the whole length of a beam. So, if we just have to draw this UVL, it will somewhat look like this. Let us say we start from here, X is equal to 0, and we do X is equal to L. It will somewhat go like this. See, here we have got 0 magnitude, and here we have got W per unit length. Okay, so this way we can, this is the uniformly varying load. Now again, to simplify this load into a concentrated load in order to do the force analysis of a beam, the magnitude of a load is nothing but the area under this curve. So let us say, what is the area? Let us say this is W, this is L. So area of this triangle is half base into height, right? Area of this triangle is half into, let us say ABC, half into AB into BC. It will be half into WL. Now, again, we have assumed that this resultant equivalent load F will act through the centroid of this triangle, which is at 1/3 distance either from this point or from this point. So it is at L by 3. So the equivalent force diagram will somewhat looks like this. Okay, its equivalent force diagram will somewhat looks like this. This is WL by 2 acting at a distance L by 3. If this is L by 3 from point A, this will be how much? Let us say BC will be how much? 2 by 3, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this will be 2 by 3L. So these are some of the different type of loadings that a beam can be subjected to. Now, I have not spoken about the various kinds of beam. There is another special type of load also, which I forgot to mention. It is a combination of uniformly distributed load and uniformly varying load. If you see any, it can be this type of load across a beam looks like this. Let us say this is our UDL from point A to point B. Okay. And from here, from this point to this point, we have got another UD, another load acting like this. Right. So this is another type of loading. So in order to deal with this type of complex loading, the best way is to separate this into two parts. One is UDL number 1 and second one is UVL number 2. Let us say if this is W1, this is W2. So delta W will be the magnitude of this triangular loading. So it will be W2 minus W1, right? W2 is from here to here. W1 is from this point to this point. Let us say C, let us say D. W2 is from B to C, W1 is from B to D. So what will be delta W, which is the magnitude of uniformly varying load? It will be W2 minus W1, right? Per unit length. So the best way to deal with this, see, if you take this UDL, the total load that will be acting through UDL will be W1 into L, the area of this rectangle, and it will be acting at a distance L by 2 from point A. So its force analysis diagram will somewhat looks like this. Let us draw for UDL first, then we will draw for UVL. If you get any problem like this, please try to approach in this way as what I am telling to you. Okay, UDL, it is W1L by 2 passing through the centroid. It is W1L, this is a magnitude. Now, it will be acting at a distance, let us say AB. It will be acting at a distance of L by 2. Alright. Now, what about this? It will be area of this. Delta 1 by 2 delta W into L. Or we can say it will be passing through the centroid. Either it is the centroid of this triangle, which means 1/3 of this distance either from point A or from point B. Let us consider for a moment from point A. X is equal to 0 to x is equal to L. So it will be somewhat acting like this. It will be 1 by 2 delta W into L will be the magnitude of this UVL and acting at a distance of L by 3 from this point O. Now you can do the force analysis. Okay, so these are most commonly acted 4 type of forces that a beam can be subjected to. Okay, one is concentrated force, second is uniformly distributed loading, third is uniformly varying loading, and fourth is a combination of UVL and UDL. Okay, now let us continue with our discussion on the type of beams. We have seen how do the cantilever looks like, and the cantilever beam also can be subjected to all these 4 type of loadings, or we can say any of these 4 type of loadings. Okay. Let me rub this. Is the forces clear to all of you? Any problem in the type of forces that acts on a beam?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, fine. Now, simply supported beam. Simply supported beam actually somewhat looks like this. It is like what we have just made few moments back. It somewhat looks like this. One side is a roller support, the other side is the pin supported. Okay, the other side is the pin supported, which means that a force can be acting like this W, something like this. So there will be two reaction forces. One is this and one is this. So this type of beam, we call it as simply supported beam. Now, what about overhanging beam? An overhanging beam somewhat looks like this. This is, let us say, simply supported beam, SSB. Now, let us draw overhanging beam. A overhanging beam somewhat looks like this. Whose two sides are always free and they are connected in between somewhat like this. Please see this. This is overhanging beam. If you apply a load like this. Okay, see, it's free and are not subjected to these type of constraint. Instead, they are constrained in between somewhere across the length of a beam. So these type of beam, we call it as overhanging beam. Okay, now the other one is rigidly fixed beam, which means a beam. This is, we call it as, let us call it as overhanging beam. The other one is rigidly fixed beam. Rigidly fixed beam somewhat is a beam. It is also known as double cantilever beam, or we can say built-in beam, which is fixed on both of the sides, right? So this is W. It will somewhat deflect like this. This will be delta. So this type of beam, which is fixed on both sides and it is acted upon by some concentrated force or externally applied force across any point in the length, we call it as fixed beam or rigidly fixed beam. Fine. Now, the other is the continuous beam. A continuous beam is one which is subjected to various number of forces. It can be subjected to forces like this, like this, like this, and like this. So these type of beam, we call it as continuous beam. Okay, now see, these are different type of beams. You should know these are the 5 types of beams that are normally used in civil engineering practice and mechanical engineering practice. Okay, and those are the 4 type of loads to which a beam can be subjected to. Now, let us briefly talk about, see, what could be the examples of a beam? Can you give some examples of a beam where a beam is normally used? Any practical example? Any practical examples where beams are normally used?
They use the construction of buildings.
Building structure,
Okay.
sir.
Okay, building construction. Okay, building construction.
Sir, elevators,
Which are-
sir.
What?
Elevators.
Elevator.
Yes, sir. Building use, sir.
Yeah, okay. We can say deck of a bridge.
Yes, sir.
Okay, see, if this is a column of a bridge, let us say we made 3 columns like this. Okay, we make 3 columns like this. So deck of a bridge will somewhat look like this, right? This is also a beam, so it is subjected to this type of loading across the column, right? So this is a deck of a bridge. Now, can you give me some example of a beam from your aircraft structure? The best example of a beam from your aircraft, from your aerospace field.
Wing.
Very good. That is what I wanted to listen. Wing of an aircraft is the most common example of a, what type of beam is that?
Cantilever beam.
Cantilevers.
Which beam? Yeah,
Cantilever.
very good. It is a cantilever beam because it is connected to the fuselage of the aircraft body, and the other end is always free, right? It is somewhat, it somewhat looks like this. It is tilted somewhere upward like this, right? And this is rigidly fixed to the aircraft body. This is subjected to wind loads from downward sides, from upward sides also. Any type of loading. See, our bones also act as a beam. Human body bones. For example, the bones in the hands, they are also the, I would say, hand bones. They are also the best example of a beam. They are, what type of beam they are? They are cantilever beam. See, let me show it to you. Please try to see here. Please try to see my hand. Can you see my hand? Yeah.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
see, this side is rigidly fixed, right? This can rotate. This can rotate, and this joint is subjected to shear, but this end is always free. So in this way, this bone is acting as a beam, right?
Yes, sir.
So hand bone is also act as a beam. The other most common example, if I take from my own field, it is the axle of an automobile. Axle of an automobile is also a type of beam. See, beam actually, axle looks like this. It is combined something like this. This is one beam, this is another. This is first beam. It is subjected to loads from engine and other parts, and it is subjected to loads from the inside vehicle cabin and also the weight of the occupant sitting inside the automobile. So these are some of the examples where the beams are normally used. Okay, now see, because of all these type of, I may actually be going a bit slow so that you guys can have a proper understanding. There is no need to save this. See, now because of all these type of loadings, I have already mentioned that beams develop some different type of internal forces that we classified as bending moment and shear forces, right? Or we can say, let us say, due to the external forces applied on the beam, it is subjected to shear forces and bending moment. Okay, it is subjected to shear forces and bending moment. Okay, it is subjected to shear forces and bending moment. Now let us say if I take a beam like this, let us say this is my roller support, this is my pin support. Okay, now let us say we start from here, x is equal to 0 to x is equal to L. The total length is L. See, let us say it is subjected to these type of two forces, F1, F2. Now see, due to these two externally applied forces F1 and F2 across any cross section in the length of a beam, it will be subjected to these type of shear forces and bending moment. Now normally this shear forces and bending moment forces normally varies in terms of magnitude across the whole length of a beam, which means that at one point the value of shear forces and bending moment will be different. Say, let us say we take three sections, section 1, section 2, section 3. So at this respective section, the values of shear forces and bending moment will differ, which means that shear forces and bending moment usually varies across the length of a beam. So this plays a very prominent role in designing a beam, because we want to determine what is the maximum shear force we have to determine, since it is varying across the section throughout the whole length of the beam, we have to determine how much is the maximum shear force and bending force that will be acting on a beam at a particular cross section. Okay, so I can say maximum bending moment. So this is very, very important in order to design the beam. Let us say we represent shear force as V and we represent bending moment by M. Okay, now since our shear force, if you see, V and M are varying across the length, which means that they can be expressed as a function of length L, right? These can be expressed as a function of length L across the length of the beam, right? So, which means that using these functions across the length L, we can estimate out the shear force and bending moment at any point. So, we denote these variation by a special type of diagrams which plays a very prominent role in designing the beams, and we call it as shear force and bending moment diagrams. Shear force and bending moment diagrams. Okay. So that is the reason shear force and bending moment diagrams are very, very important to design the beam, so that we should know where or at which point our maximum shear forces or maximum bending moment is acting. Naturally, in order to avoid that maximum shear force or maximum bending moment, we will be providing some sort of support, or we can say some sort of reinforcement in order to minimize this, right? So that is a reason it becomes very, very important to understand the shear force and bending moment acting in a beam. So we will be taking different cases in order to see how we can draw the shear force and bending moment diagram. Okay, now before that, you should know what exactly is shear force and what is bending moment. So let me just define it in a very, very short manner here. Okay, so let us talk about shear force first. Now, shear force is what? Let us say shear force, we represent this by V. Shear force at any cross section of a beam, at any cross sectional area of the beam is defined as the unbalanced, please try to see, is defined as unbalanced vertical force. Okay, it is defined as unbalanced vertical force to the right or left of the section. Now I will tell you what do we mean by this term, to the right or left of the section. Okay, to the right or left of the section. Section is where we want to study the distribution of the forces. Similarly, bending moment, we represent this by Bm. It is defined as the algebraic sum of all the moments. Please remember this definition. Algebraic sum of the moments. I will take another 15 to 20 minutes. Algebraic sum of the moments of the forces to right or left hand of the section. Okay. Sum of moments of the forces to right or left of the section. Okay. To right or left of the section. This is the definitions for shear force and bending moment. Now let us try to look out what will be the sign convention that we will be using normally in order to draw the shear force and bending moment for various type of beams subjected to different type of forces. Okay, so yeah, so let us try to look out for the sign convention of shear force and bending moment diagram. Okay, let us say sign convention for shear force and bending moment diagram. Now, where is my notes? Yeah. See, this will be very easy. See, let me take a brief example of a beam. Say it is subjected to a load W like this. Okay, it is subjected to a load W like this. Now, see, normally to deal with shear force and bending moment of a diagram, first rule, you have to remember few rule. Always start from left hand side. Okay, always start from left hand side. I am writing down these rules so that you can remember it very easily. Always start from left hand side, from LHS to RHS. Okay, which means that let us take, we draw some axis, say this is x axis. So here the length will be 0, and if the entire length of this beam is L, so at x is equal to 0, so here we have x is equal to 0 when L is equal to 0. Now here we have got x is equal to L at this point. Let us say point A and point B. So we will proceed from left hand to right hand side. But there is an exception. In case of cantilever beam, please take the sign convention from right hand side to left hand side. We will take case by cases. We'll start from left hand side to right hand side. Sorry, right hand side to left hand side. So let us have this let us have a look at this case first. So let us draw two sections. One section across the left hand section of a beam. Okay, and second section across the right hand section of a beam. So if you just draw the reaction force will somewhat looks like this. And if you see here, right, if you just take this section, say A dash, if you take this section on LHS, sign convention for shear force, let us say this is your cut section. On LHS there is a load, so it will be acting like this. On the left hand side, if your shear forces act in this way, it will be taken as positive. While on the right hand side, Okay. On the right hand side, if you just take say B and B dash, if you take, let us say for example, if you take this right hand side, see, I will just explain in more detail. If your shear force acts on the right hand side in this way, if you find across the right hand side your shear forces in this way, it will be taken as negative. Now the question is, why we are taking this as negative positive and why we are taking this as negative? So you just try to remember from complementary property of stresses, shear stresses, that on the opposite sides, let us say if it is acting like this, so this type of shear stresses tend to rotate this body element into a clockwise direction, right? So if these type of shear forces on the left hand side tend to rotate the body in clockwise direction, it will be taken as positive. Whereas on the right hand side, if the rotation due to these shear forces will be anti-clockwise, it will be taken as negative. So please remember this sign convention. This will be more clear when we will do some basic numerical problems. Okay, so this is the sign convention for shear force. This will be the sign convention for shear force. Now, what will be the sign convention for bending moment? It's very easy. See, please remember two things. When we deal with the fluxural equation in the coming lectures, we will see that whenever a body bends, there are two types of bending that a body can bend into. One we call it as sagging. Other bending we call it as hogging. Sagging actually looks like this. If a load is acting in a beam such that the beam deflects in this manner. The beam deflects in this manner, which means that this side it will be subjected to a clockwise moment, and on this side it will be subjected to a anti-clockwise moment. Right? So if a body is actually getting sagged under the action of externally applied force, in that case we take bending moment as positive. Okay, which means the outer layer of the body will be under tension and this layer will be under compression. So if a body is getting sagged due to the externally applied force, or if it bends in a sagging mode, then the bending moment will be taken as positive. Now if a body is subjected to a forces such that a body bends like this, which means its inner layer is now subjected to tension and this is now subjected to compression as opposite to sagging. So there will be a anti-clockwise moment acting like this and clockwise moment acting like this. If a body is getting hogged in this way, let us say this is convex and this is concave, right? So in this case the bending moment is taken as negative, right? So these are the sign convention that we will be using while drawing the shear force and bending moment diagram. Okay, so these are some basic sign conventions that are normally used to draw the shear force and the bending moment diagram.
It's both positive, sir.
Sorry? Oh,
Tagging and
yeah. Sorry. It is negative.
negative. Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah, it is negative. Thank you for pointing out this. Yeah, this is negative. Okay, so this is the sign convention. There are actually numerous number of ways in which you can determine the positive bending moment and negative bending moment. We will talk about it later on when we will deal with each individual case of how to draw the shear force and bending moment diagram separately. Okay, so few points you should remember before we jump on to how to how do we draw the shear force and bending moment diagram? Please remember few important points. Okay, please remember. It is shows the, I would name this as relationship between the loading, shear force and bending moment. Relation between loading, shear force and bending moment. Okay, V and M. Fine. So yeah, so first point you should remember. There are four important points that you should keep in your mind. Okay, I have just summarized it by my own. If there is a point load, I am writing this in detail now. If there is a point load means concentrated load. If there is a point load at a section on the beam, if there is a point load at a section on the beam, then the shear force changes suddenly. Then the shear force changes suddenly. Okay, and here the bending moment will remain the same. There will be no effect on the bending moment. We will just see while we do the numerical problems. We will just try to see how these rules are applicable. The bending moment remains the same. Now, about second point. See, if there is no load between two sections, or we can say if there is no load between 2 points, yeah. So, am I audible now? There was a network disconnection in between. Okay, so if there is no load between 2 points, please dedicate more time to solve as much as problems you can, because this is going to be very, very important. Once you develop the concepts, you will never be able to forget throughout your whole life. So if there is no points between 2 points on the beam, okay, 2 points on the beam, there will be no change in the shear force, or we can say shear force will not change. Shear force will not change. Okay, what now? But here the bending moment will change linearly. The bending moment will change linearly. Okay, it will be changing linearly. This is the second point. Now, what about the third point? The third point is if there is a uniformly distributed load between 2 points. Okay, so if there is a UDL between 2 points. UDL means uniformly distributed loads. If there is a UDL between 2 points, then shear force changes linearly. Then shear force changes linearly. Okay, it will change in a linear fashion, whereas the bending moment will follow the parabolic law. Okay, we'll see how it will be parabolic. The bending moment will be parabolic. Please remember these points. These are very, very important from your gate preparation point of view. The bending moment will be parabolic in this case. It will always be parabolic whenever there will be UDL. Please remember this. Okay. So the bending moment will be parabolic. The last and most important point. If there is a uniformly bearing load, if there is a UVL between 2 points, UVL between 2 points, the shear force will change parabolically. Okay, the shear force will change parabolically. Whereas the bending moment change according to cubic law. The bending moment changes according to the cubic law. Cubic law means to the power 3, WL cube by 3. Okay, the bending moment changes according to cubic law. So these are the 4 points that you should remember whenever you deal with problems related to UDL, UVL and concentrated load. So it changes according to cubic law. So please take care of these points. Okay, these are very, very important points. So we have covered the basics of the shear forces bending moment diagram. Let us quickly do 2 little small problems to have a flavor of the concept of drawing the shear force and bending moment diagram. Okay, so let me take a very small problem. Okay, let me take a problem of a simply supported beam subjected to a UDL. So let us say problem number 1. It is draw SFD and BMD diagrams for the beam as shown in figure. For the beam as shown in figure. We have a beam like this. Okay, we have a beam like this. It is subjected to roller support here, and there will be pin support here like this. Okay, it is subjected to UDL like this. This is W per unit length, and the length of a beam is capital L. Now let us try to draw the bending moment diagram and shear force diagram. Now I have already mentioned, if you come across this type of problem in which the beam is subjected to UDL, so what will be the first point? Let us say solution. First point, we have to determine the reaction forces across the end, and we have to convert this UDL into a single force. So let us say step number 1. We'll solve these problems in steps. Step number 1. Step 1 is determining the support reactions. Determining support reactions. Okay. Now, if you just draw the free body diagram of this beam and you convert this into a concentrated load. So the free body diagram of a beam looks like this. Let us make it a simple line. Let us call this as point A. Let us take this as point B. No, sorry. Take this as point A and take this as point B. So here it is subjected to, let us say RA, and it is subjected to RB. Okay. Now what will be the load that will be acting at this center, or we can say centroid of this, or we can say L by 2. What will be the load? W into L, right? Area of this curve, it is W into L. So WL is the total load that will be acting on it. So if you see this condition, so we have to determine RA and RB. So how we can determine? We will use equations of equilibrium, right? So let us say using equations of equilibrium. So first let us say plus minus, let us say this is your y direction and this is your x direction. And here x is equal to 0 and we have got x is equal to L. So we have to start from left hand side as I have already mentioned. So here summation of Fy will be 0. So it will be Ra plus Rb is equal to WL. Right? Is this clear to everyone? Equation of equilibrium? Is this clear to? Yeah. Now let us take moment about any of these 2 points, A or B, or we can say summation of m naught is equal to 0. We take moment about, let us say we take moment about point B. So what will be moment about point B? Let us try to see. See, about point B, this reaction will tend to rotate the body in clockwise fashion. So we will take it to be negative if you remember the engineering mechanics convention. So it will be minus Ra into L. And this, with respect to this point, this will be L by 2. L by 2. So this will tend to rotate the body in anti-clockwise direction. So it will be plus. So it will be W into L by 2, right? Which means that we have got Ra into L is equal to WL square by 2, which simply shows this will be WL by 2, Ra. So similarly, if you just put the value of Ra here, you will get value of Rb as WL by 2, right? So here we have got WL by 2 and Rb also as WL by 2. Is this clear to everyone? How we have got these two reactions, WL by 2 and WL by 2? Clear now? Any issues in this?
No,
Okay.
sir, clear.
Okay, so let us proceed with step number 2. We'll just take only this example, rest we will continue in our next lecture. So let us draw the free body diagram of this, improved free body diagram. Okay, so free body diagram somewhat looks like this. Oops. This is A, this is B. WL by 2, WL by 2, and this is WL. Okay, now let us say we take this original UDL. Okay, we have determined the reactions. We take this UDL. I could have drawn directly, actually. It will go like this. This is positive, go. at this point where a load is acting, so there will be zero shear force, and this will be downward, so it will be negative. So the shear force will actually somewhat looks like this. But I want to tell you in more detail how does it actually come. See, we have point A, point B. Let us say we take some particular individual section. Say this to be section at point C. So there will be, let us say it is situated at a distance x from point A. So we have to draw this section. So what will be the reaction force that will be acting on it? It is WL by 2. Okay. Now here, what will be the intensity of this load that will be acting on this particular section? It is Wx. Right? W into x, this is W because from A to C this is x, the magnitude remains the same. So the area is W into x. So the magnitude is W into x and it is acting at a distance x by 2 from A. Let us say this is point C. Okay, let us say since it's acting onwards, this is, we assume V to be like this, and since this is a force, it will try to bend the body in this way, so we will take bending moment to be positive, which means positive, we have to assume it in anti-clockwise fashion. Okay, this way, this, right? So let us say this is x. So we use equation of equilibrium for this section. So what will be the summation of the forces? Let us say using equations of equilibrium. Give me a moment, guys. So let us say using equation of equilibrium. Plus minus summation of Fy is equal to 0. So we'll just sum up for this. So this will be going upward, positive WL by 2 minus Wx, right? And this is going downwards, minus V is equal to 0. Okay, so V is the shear force. It will come out to be WL by 2 minus Wx, which means you can take out W common. So L by 2 minus x. See now, shear force here is a function of x. Okay, now we will take moment about this point C. Okay, so taking moment about point C. Please try to see. Taking moment about point C. So about point C, this will be clockwise, minus WL by 2 into x, right? Plus, with respect to this point, this is an anti-clockwise, so it will be plus W into x into, this will be x by 2, right? So this will be x by 2. Now this is already anti-clockwise, so it will be plus m is equals to 0. So m here will come out to be, let us try to write it here, m here will come out to be W by 2 into Lx minus x square. Okay, so we got these equations for V and M. Is this clear to everyone? V and M, how do we get this equation for this particular section? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
So,
sir.
yeah, let me just save this. Okay, so let us write this equation here on left hand side. See, V was what? We have got a certain equation as a function of x, W into L by 2 minus X M W by 2 Lx minus X square. Okay. Now see, at X is equal to, now we will take that free body diagram into account. WL by 2, WL by 2, this is WL. Okay, this is this is L by 2. And this is also L by 2. So at X is equal to 0. So we will be how much? It will be WL by 2. Okay. If you just put X is equal to 0, WL by 2. Now at X is equal to say L by 2. V will be 0, right? Now at X is equal to L. So V will be equal to minus WL by 2. So we have got these two values, right? So this is a linear relationship. I have already told you one point. Wherever there is a concentrated load applied, shear force will be 0. That is the reason we are getting this shear force as 0. Now let us see about the bending moment. At X is equal to 0, M will be 0. Okay. At X is equal to L, M again will be 0. Now at X is equal to L by 2, M will come out to be WL square by 8, which is nothing but a form of parabola. Clear now? WL square by 8. So if we just draw the free body diagram and shear force diagram, it will look like this. Let us say this is shear force diagram. And this is bending moment diagram. Okay. So let us say this point as A, B, and we call this as point C. Somewhat, let us call this as, we have already taken point C. Let us call it as C dash. Now, C at X is equal to 0 means point here. So we have got V is equal to WL by 2. This is positive. So somewhat here, right? Now at X is equal to L, we have got minus WL by 2. So it is downwards. At X is equal to L by 2, which is this, it is 0, which means it will pass on like this. This is positive shear force, this is negative shear force. Okay, so it will be like this. Now, what about this bending moment? Let's call it as C dash. A and B is already 0, so we'll put 0, 0. And this is WL square by 8 at L by 2. It is nothing but a form of parabola, so it will go like this. So this is your maximum bending moment. I have already told you wherever there is a 0 shear force, you will have maximum bending moment. And since it is subjected to UDL, so it will be parabolic. So this is your shear force diagram and bending moment diagram for this beam. So that is how we normally proceed to draw the shear force diagram and bending moment diagram for different type of beams subjected to different type of loadings. So let us stop it here for now. And we will continue this discussion in the next lecture. Okay. So any queries you can ask me now.